Hello, my beautiful, beautiful friends. Aloha from wherever it is that you're streaming by here in the second episode of the Rising with Love podcast. I'm super thrilled and super excited to have you here today. And I'm even more thrilled and even more excited to talk with you about this very, very, very special topic. Today we're gonna dive deep into the mother wound. And that is such a powerful topic to talk about because we all have a mom, and I feel like especially the mother wound really is a collective thing. There are so many people out there who are struggling with that topic and who have experienced not getting the attention that they needed from their parents or especially from their mother. And our mother, like, that is such a special connection, because in the end we've been basically created within her stomach. And I feel like this is something which we first of all are really allowed to become aware of. That the first experience in our lives we made in the wound of our mother, and we've spent a lot of time there. We spent a lot of time with her in this really intimate space. As babies, as embryos, we basically are so aware of everything that our mother is going through, of the stress that she might have, of the fun that she might have, of the excitement, of the joy. Like, we're so sensitive that we're feeling all the emotions that she has. And even after we come to earth, after we enter this beautiful place, after she gives birth to us, we are still so sensitive to that. And our mother is the first person that we're connecting with. So it's a really special and powerful bondage. And even in the first years, like, we always are going to have this connection. We're always going to be feeling what our mom is feeling. We're going to notice if she's stressed and if she's worried. All of those things are already starting to get programmed in our systems, because especially in the first years, there are not a lot of words that we hold in our conscious minds, because, well, we are babies, we don't know them. So all which we can sense and which we can notice and which we can become aware of is basically the body language of our mother, like the motions that she's going through and how she is moving around you, how she's talking with you, the sound of voice that she is using to calm you or to wake you, or whatever it is that you're going through in your day-to-day life as a baby. So there's so much programming already happening in those years. And before we're going to dive a tiny bit deeper in that topic now, I really would love to invite you to just take a deep breath into your stomach. Let it go with a sigh. And just for a second, turn your attention inwards and feel if you maybe can sense your toes without looking or peeking at them, but just by going in your inner energy field. And the reason why I wanted to guide you to this place is because this is a really deep topic and there's so much to explore for us. And I really would love to give you some goodies on how you can strengthen the relationship with your mother and how you can build this healthy and nourishing relationship with your mother over a long time of period. Because again, everything is a process and nothing is going to happen from one second to the other. And your mother, as much as every other person in this universe as well, is just a human being who is going through their own processes too. So even if we are starting to be the change that we want to see, this is going to reflect on the relationship with our mothers, but it still takes a tiny bit of time for motion to come in place and for things to really unfold in a natural way and in a way that feels good to ourselves and our body. So it's a process. I as well feel like the calling to speak out this reminder that everything what I'm sharing here with you is based on my own experience. So I would really invite you to pick what suits you the best and to pick what is resonating with your own soul, to pick what is resonating with your own journey right now. and leave the rest wherever it is supposed to be. All right, so let's dive into that. By now, I think you already know that the relationship I had with my mother was a really challenging one. And I was allowed to grow in so many aspects, in so many different areas of my life because of the relationship that I had with my mother. And I remember that I had a pretty amazing babyhood and like younger childhood. And I'm talking about the age from 0 to around 5 years old. Back in that time, I remember that my mother has done so many amazing and beautiful things with me. Like, I remember that we went to a drawing course. I remember that we went to an English speaking class and to like this mother and child class and so on and so on. And I felt like things started to become really difficult for me and my mother by the age where my ego started to arise, which means by the age where I started to become self-aware and I started to notice and consciously become aware of this voice in my head that is talking to me the entire time, just talking to everyone, like thoughts. That was the moment where things started to become really challenging, because as well, that was the time where I started to get to know my emotional pain body in a different way, or became aware of my pain body. That was the time period where I as well didn't know how to deal with my emotions, or how to cope, or how to have a healthy relationship with my emotions. And I feel like that happened as well because I've talked about this in the podcast episode before. My parents as well didn't know how to cope with their emotions in a really healthy way. Back in the days as well, like nowadays, I feel like it is a tiny bit different, and like we're having so much more health promotion, which is going on in society, that people tell you, you should eat healthy and exercise and meditate and do yoga or do anything to calm your parasympathetic nervous system. But back in the days, that wasn't so present, and I feel like it was more natural to cope with alcohol or with chocolate or with fast food or with watching TV and not needing to fully be present with one's emotions and let them work through you so you come out bright on the other side. And because of that, basically what happened was like I was the ventile for my mother, and my mother let out a lot of emotions that she had stored within herself on top of me. Now I know that my mother already did her best on not putting the same intensity of emotions on top of me than her parents have put on top on her. And the way how I know that is because she basically told me, like, there were multiple moments in my childhood where she said, like, oh, you know what would have happened if I would have done that with my dad, you know what he would have said, he never let me go out, I was never allowed to do this, I was never allowed to do that, so you should be grateful of what I'm giving you. And all those sentences which are still toxic, but there's so much truth within it. And for me, that was what I realized for myself. That was her telling me that she's already trying her best on being a better parent, a better mother than what she has been experienced when she was a child. And there were like multiple situations, like things that happened when I came too late home from the playground and I started to get like house arrest. It was called house arrest for multiple of weeks, where I wasn't allowed to leave the house anymore. I don't know who invented this house arrest, but like it's the most stupidest thing. And if you should have children, you do that with them at home, like don't do it, because you basically force your child to stay inside instead of it spending time in nature and exploring and doing their own mistakes. So I don't know what serve would that punishment be instead of just making someone depressed. And it actually really brought inside of me, just to make that clear, like this having to stay at home and not being able to leave the house really brought attachment anxiety. Yes, attachment anxiety up in myself, which means like when I felt like I'm being trapped, I'm being caged, I just feel like I have this inner resistance of like, I want to break out, like I don't want to be here, like why do I have to stay? which I feel like in itself as well is a tiny bit of a natural response to all the time where you have to be trapped or forced somewhere. I'm losing it there. Let's go back to the topic. So, my mother and I had a really hard relationship for as long as I could think about. And I always said that I hate my mother, especially in the age of 16, 17. I was like, I'm never going to talk to her. Like, once I'm old enough, strong enough to move out here, I'm going to, end all the contact with her. Like, and this is going to be my revenge of like showing her, like, this is what you've done to me. And like, because of you, I have all of those problems. Because of you, I have all of those pains. And you fucked me up. And that was really the mentality I was in. There was so much hate around it. There was so much anger that I had towards her. And we had multiple fights during that time period. And it came the time where I moved across the world and I moved to Australia, and I went to Australia because it was the furthest. But as well, I was really excited about Australia. I really felt like I wanted to experience it. So in the moment I left, something funny did happen, or like in the moment I left, I didn't felt like it was the right thing anymore to simply break the contact with my mother. As well, because one of the biggest values that I hold in my life is like the things that I don't want anyone else to do with me, I do not want to do with anyone else. And I don't like it when my mother wasn't talking for me for months, partly even for weeks. Like I hated it. And that happened. So I knew for myself, like, this isn't what I want. Like, I want to have a relationship with my mother, but I just didn't know how. But in the moment there was like space between us, things started to become a tiny bit more easier because I felt more free. I didn't felt like I was controlled so much. I felt like if I have the opportunity to take my space, I simply can take my space and step out of any toxic situation which isn't serving me in that present moment. And it started everything, the entire healing process that I had with my relationship towards her started with that moment. And it went even further and more in depth in the moment I went to my teacher training, to my yoga teacher training. And I remember I was lying there on my yoga mat. It was like one of the last days. And sometimes we're storing like really old stuck emotions within our tissues, within our muscles. And then in the moment we start to stretch, or in the moment where we start to, for example, do breath work, we give space to our body and we give space to those emotions to release themselves and to basically come in a free flow again. And for me that happened, and I was lying in a happy baby posture, basically opening my legs to the universe. So I give it to me, and I started to cry. And in the beginning I really didn't understand why was I crying. I didn't get it. I was like, why am I crying right now? Like what happened? And in an instant, like I received like this answer from my higher mind, which was basically telling me that I'm forgiving right now. I'm forgiving my mother for everything that happened. I'm forgiving my mother for all the terrible mistakes she did, for one simple reason. In the moment I was lying there on my yoga mat, I understood that all the pain, all the depression, all the suffering that I had felt and that was present within me wasn't mine, but it was hers. That I felt her pain because all she did over this entire years of programmation, of raising me, was placing the pain that she had within herself on top of me. And that is what made me cry, because I had so much compassion for her in that moment, because I, for the first time in my life, saw her, and I saw her for her pain and for the suffering that she was experiencing. And that really opened up my heart. It opened up my heart to my own pain that I was feeling, but it as well opened up my heart to my mother. And I, for the first time, really had compassion for what she was going through. And I felt her by feeling myself, by being present within myself. And that was the moment where I started to decide to call her and to apologize. And I did a Ho'oponopono method back then, which is basically telling her that I feel sorry. Like Ho'oponopono are like 4 sentences. It's like a forgiveness ritual. And basically you say like, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you. Thank you. That was the first. The fourth was thank you. Thank you. So I did that. And I called her and I apologized. I apologized for everything that I have done. And would I have wished myself that my mom would see the mistakes that she did? Yes, of course. Of course, I would have wished myself that she could see the pain that she had caused me during this entire time. So I wish she could see what that created within me. But that wasn't the intention that I had during that call. My intention really basically was to own up for my shit. So that is the first thing that I want to give you. The first tip. Own up to your own shit. Because by then, I was an adult and I could see the mistakes that I was doing between the relationship of my mom and me. And it didn't matter that she triggered it, and it didn't matter that she caused it and that I reacted to it. Like, that didn't matter. But there was a lot of shit that I did which wasn't okay. And if I am really honest to myself to that point today, a lot of those things I did on purpose. I did because I wanted to hurt her. I was like, you hurt me, you know what, bitch? Like, watch me. Like, this shit's gonna throw right back to you. And so often I said things to her which were like really painful and really triggering her as well. And I knew it, and well, I enjoyed it in a sense of as well back in that days. It was good that I did stood up for myself. Don't misunderstand me. That fire that awakened that day was like so valuable and so important. But in the same time, I can own up to the parts which weren't good and which are allowed to get more love from myself as well. And so I called her and I apologized for that. I apologized for not seeing the pain and for doing those things on purpose. And she didn't apologize back in the days, and it was okay for me. Like, I was ready for a new chapter, and I was ready to accept that she might never see what she did to me, and that is not the point. The point is me asking myself, like, what do I want right now? Do I want to hold on to that pain? Do I really want to pull that pain, like this angerness, this everything that I'm feeling for the rest of my life? Or do I want to have a different relationship with my mother, a relationship which my children as well are going to look up to and be like, oh, this is so nice, this is so loving. Like, what do I want for my life, which is the story that I want to tell myself at the end of my journey. And that's only step number one. No, there are like multiple steps, multiple treats which I'm giving to. That's why I say, like, pick and take what serves you the best and what is really helping you to come to the next level of your healing journey, whatever that is, however that looks like. So I started to own up my own emotions. I took responsibility over my own emotions, realizing that I'm not a child anymore. I'm an adult now too. So if I want a different relationship with my mom, that's what I have to do. And it was a long journey that we came to the point where we are today, where we really have a healthy relationship, or a more healthy relationship. We were still working on, there's still so much pain going around in my family, especially with the situations that we are in. But our communication has come to an entire new level. And by now we're on a point where we can simply communicate each other that we need space from each other right now, that we're right now too triggered, without taking it personally, without getting mad of the other person, but by simply knowing and understanding we're both living our own truths, we're both individuals, and we're both working through our own healing journey. And there are gonna be times in our lives where we are aligning with each other and where we have this beautiful deep connection, where we're really vibing and where we have like amazing talks. Like, there are days where my mom really is my best friend and I feel like I can flow and talk with her about everything, and she's so present for me and holds that space for me and really gives me guidance and support. And there are days where I literally would love to I don't know what to do with her, like like, what the fuck should I do with you, like, and where she just as well gives me the allowance to become more aware of traumas which may still be present within myself. Because in the end, our parents are the best mirror for ourselves. Like, we're coming from our parents, and everything everything, listen to that, which is present within our parents is present within in ourselves too, because that's the second tip I have for you. You and your parents, you're not separated from each other. You basically come from your parents. Not just that, you come from your entire family history. So if you really want to work on healing your mother wound, start to look at your history. Start to look at the pain, at the traumas that your mother, your father, your parents were going through, because they're all present within yourself somehow. Let's say, to put that in perspective, my grandma, and maybe even before that, like, we had a family case in our family where, like, I feel like one of my aunties or like great grandmothers, someone, like, don't ask me, but it's like really close related in the family history, basically was burned alive. Like, she set herself on fire because she was like cooking something, and back in the day, if you were still having that stove where you put fire in it, and she had like this cream, like baldrian or something on top of herself, which basically lit her up on fire. So she was like a burning candle. So in my family history, from my mother's side, there's a lot of scarcity around everything, basically. My grandma as well, she got robbed at one day. So my mother's side's family is like really scared about sickness, about robbery, about all the bad things in the world that can happen to you. And I have that so much present within myself, like, to a point where I even now start to become more and more aware of that like when I'm walking out at night, I'm like, oh my God, just now something happened to me, like, especially with sicknesses, because, for example, my grandma, when I was a child, always called us, and it was always like, did you heard there's like the bird flu going around, beware, don't pick up birds, like they told it in the media. And like, she did that with every single sickness that was like, I wasn't even allowed to cough on the phone when I talked to her, because in the moment I coughed, she was like, are you sick? Do you need to go to the doctor? Like, and I'm really having anxiety about sickness nowadays, and that is the cause by it, because I basically have been told all the time that it is super terrible to be sick, and of course it feels terrible in your body, but well, you're not going to die every single time you're sick. Like, your body actually becomes stronger with every sickness. So there was never a positive aspect. And that is just an example on showing you how that can be transferred to yourself. So many problems within yourself basically can come from that. With that said, in the moment where you start to heal yourself, you're not only healing yourself, but you're healing an entire family history. You are healing a journey that your ancestors were already going through years before you were even existing, years before you even were born. But with that said as well, there are not only all negative sides that we're getting from our ancestors. There are so many positive and beautiful people. Here it is again, my alarm. I thought I turned it off anyways. So many positive things that we're getting from our ancestors as well, because as much as there is negative, there always is positive. That makes the entire thing whole. And what happened to me, that is the second or the third tip, depending on how you want to see it, is that I started to realize all the good things that I did get from my mother. And, you know, Tony Robbins always says that. He always says, like, if you blame your parents for the bad things that happened in your life, you have to blame your parents for the good things that happened in your life too. And that is something so, so, so true in everything, in every aspect. So all the negative aspects that you are taking on from your parents, you as well have the positive aspects. And there are so many beautiful things that I took from my mom. Like, the reason that I'm sitting here today and doing this podcast, being here with you, working here with you, is basically because of my mother, and because my mother already did this healing, because my mother was a yoga teacher too, because my mother taught me to go on workshop, to do coaches, to like work on yourself, to learn from yourself, and with that to grow and to expand into, well, a newer and brighter version of yourself. I got that entrepreneurial mindset from my mother and from my dad as well, but that's a different story. Today we're focusing only on the feminine side. Woo! And not just that, like, I got her creativity, I got her passion for music, I got her sweetness, like, all the different aspects, like her loving side that I can see within my mother are present within myself as well, and I love them. No, there are so many aspects of her that I see within me, and that I'm just like, well, thank you so much for giving that to me. Like, I'm so grateful. I don't like this fire inside of me as well, like this dragon that I can just set free, which was like a smoke which burns down the entire city. Like, I got that from her too, and that's so powerful because it gives me the freedom to stand up for myself and to speak my truth and to be here today and have the bravery. So if you blame your parents for that, blame your parents for the good things that they did too. And not only that, but every situation, everything that they have done to you, which caused negative effects in your life, did automatically cause positive effects in your life too. Again, nothing can exist without its opposite. It always needs both, and it's always depending on what you're focused on, what you're putting your attention towards. So let's say, for me, in my case, I never felt seen by my mother. I always felt like she was never seeing who I really am and who I was behind all the conditioning and behind basically her pain, but in that sense, like the pain that I was reflecting to her. And what that did within me was it just brought out this side in me which wanted to take even more care to make sure that other people do feel seen by me, to make sure that I see other people and that I give other people the sense of like, okay, I am here with you, I'm present with you, I see you, I feel you. And there's so much positive things that came out of that wound, and things which I'm really, really grateful for. Again, I mean, the reason that I'm sitting here was the entire journey of pain that I had. It was my awakening, and it was the reason why I said, like, I'm going to heal myself, I'm going to go through with that, and then I'm going to give that knowledge to others, because there's always a natural way on healing things. So becoming aware of that, if you have the time for that, you might even just want to pause this podcast and write down this question, like, what was the biggest pain that I had in the relationship with my mother? Like, what was it that I would wish to see? Like, what would I have wished from her? Like, what did I really needed? And which good effect did that had on my life that didn't happen? Like, what gift did that had for me? Because that's another point. It's always coming to the point of focus. Like, what do you believe? Like, did the things that happen in your life happen because God wants to punish you, the universe wants to punish you, or whatever? Or did the things in your life happen because it actually came as a gift for you, as a present, as your special, unique gift that makes you who you are and that makes you special in a really fantastic and weird way? So sit down that and just think about that. Yeah. Another thing which I can recommend you to do is to really start to become present of the own shadow. So to become present of what your mother is mirroring to you. And shadow and trigger work, I feel like, is an entire topic on itself. But we're all having the shadow side, and we're all having a light side that comes back from Carl Jung. He was an amazing psychologist and basically a really inspiring story. Maybe I talk about that on another point, but Carl Jung always said that only if we're integrating our shadow, only if we're integrating our shadow side, we are coming to wholeness. And the things which I recognized, which are triggering me the most on my mother, are the things which I am not giving enough love towards myself. Like, for example, I would not have understanding or patience when she lost her temper. And that is okay that I didn't have that, because I'm on my healing journey and growing journey as well. But I am as well not having enough love and compassion for myself when I am losing my temper. And it all comes back to me coming in this place where I really start to judge myself, and where I start to judge my mother and being like, oh, she's doing this on purpose and she's like only doing that to hurt me and la la la. And that can be all good and all possible, but that all as well just comes out of a protection mechanism. And I feel like this is something which we really are allowed to become aware of. Like, there is that certain moment or motion in our lives where there's this protection mechanism, our ego getting triggered so much that we as consciousness are just completely stepping aside and things are just happening through us. Like automatically, we can't take control over them anymore until to a certain point where we come back and where we realize, like, what the fuck just happened? Like, why did I just shoot that out so much anger towards the other person? Like, why have I been so reactive? And that's why we are as well using meditation now to become more aware of that reactivity and to hold more space until that reactivity starts to kick in. So in the moment we are starting to understand our own mechanisms as well more, we can understand the mechanisms of our parents too, and about all the people around us. But it as well has to do from us putting our parents away from this pedestal that we put them on, this pedestal in the way that we place them there, and we're like, this is my mom, this is my mother, this is my dad, like they should be in that way, they should behave in that way, like this is what a proper mom should look like. Like we're having so many expectations on our parents on how they should be, which has to do as well with us having so many expectations on ourselves on how we should be, instead of just accepting and accepting us for who we are and accepting our parents for who they are and allowing them to be who they are. Which doesn't mean, which brings me to the fourth tip or like fifth tip, I lost track of it, which basically means like standing up for yourself, you know, and showing boundaries, because that is what we miss as children. Like how often did we stop and stepped up to our parents and be like, no, you are not talking to me in this way. Like you can talk to me, but not in that way. And that is what essentially is going to bring the biggest change. And here it comes. Like, this is a really important goodie. Like, you're not going to be good at it the first time you're ever going to do it. Like, you're going to suck in it. And your mother or your dad, like whoever it is, but let's focus on the mother side, is going to be super confused by it, because for the first time in your life, you start to speak up for yourself. For the first time in your life, you show your mother, like, this is how far you can go, and you're not going further than that. And of course, she's gonna be so confused by it. She's like, what the heck? Like, since when are we playing this game? Like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, you're my daughter, you're not, or my son, you're not supposed to talk to me in this way. And like, no, I am. Like, because you are stepping over a boundary of mine right now. Did I say boundary of me right now? And I do not like that. And you are allowed to know that this is not okay for me. Dot point. Like, there's nothing more to say. And then your mother can, blast on you whatever she wants to. She can be confused as much as she wants to. And there it comes back down to compassion and to have that understanding of what would you wish from yourself. If you would have someone who is setting you boundaries for the first time, of course you would want to have an explanation for that. And you would want to understand. And so what I did with my mom is I explained, and most of the time I as well just simply hold that space. Like, when she was starting to scream at me because she wasn't okay of how I did things, like I was not saying anything, and I was just staying calm. And that happened so often that even there was one time where she stopped and she's like, how do you do that? Like, how do you stay so much calm? And then I tried to explain it to her, and she didn't really understood it. But you can only offer healing to another person. Like, it is the person itself which needs to decide that it wants to heal. And maybe the other person is not ready at that point. Maybe there's something missing in consciousness to become aware of their own processes. But it's not your job to heal anyone. And I feel this is so important, especially if you have abusive parents or an abusive mother. Like, you always learn that you are responsible for the emotion of your parents, and you are not. You are not. Like, if you are speaking out things which are not okay for you, you do not do that to hurt the other person. You do that because you stand up for yourself. And this is so important to understand. You do that because you love yourself enough to not hurt yourself. Get that. Get that. Really get that. And in the beginning, you might be really crappy in it, and you might say things which are not okay. You might as well lose your temper, and that's okay. You are allowed to do that because you are allowed to take your time in learning how to deal with your emotions and learning how to heal this mother wound and learning how to verbalize yourself and to let yourself be seen, because that leads us to the 6th point. I'm not sure if it's point number 5 or 6. I lost it, but it doesn't matter either. Like, and this is like seeing your own pain. And I feel like this was like the key shift in the relationship that I had to my mother, that I am now on a point where I'm really in a neutral space, where I'm like, I love to hear from my mom. I'm super happy when I hear from her. But if right now isn't the time for us, for what reason ever, that is absolutely fine as well. I know she loves me. I know if it comes heart by heart, I can always call her. I always have a space to go. But if I don't feel it, like, I don't need to reach out to her, and that's fine too. And if I don't feel like doing something while I'm in Germany, that's fine too. If it's okay for her or not, that's not my problem. That is hers to deal with. But that was all with seeing my own pain. And with that, I mean like seeing the pain that her raising me cost me. And that took a while, because like I really felt like I was completely fine with my healing journey. I was like, I'm not angry towards my mom. I forgave her. It's just all fine. This is all cool. But I always had this sense of sadness, like, and there were like almost the sense that I wasn't able to allow deep emotional intimacy with other people where I felt safe love. And this is like a topic which I love to flow with you about as well, like what's safe love and which is conditioned love. But for me, I found it so hard, and I always had this scarcity around. I understood that it was all coming from the relationship that I had with my mother, because my mother always brought so much conditioned love towards me, which was this like, I only give you love and attention in the moment you achieve something, and if you do mistakes, if you are doing something wrong, that you're not worthy of my love, you're not worthy of seeing my love. It's a really old way of like raising children. Don't do that at home, like it's really not healthy for your child. Your child should know that it is loved in all colors, and you should know that too, because this is what society is leaking so much as well. Like this, you are only worthy if you achieve, you're only worthy if you manage to come somewhere. But no, you're always worthy. If you achieve something, you're worthy. If you do not achieve something and you are sitting on your bed the entire day watching, guess what? You're worthy too. If you eat a bunch of peanut butter and you overeat, you are still worthy. Like you can do shit and you would still be worthy. Get that. Really get that. But allow yourself to feel that pain and allow yourself to let that inner child come out. And that was basically what I did in the end too. I brought this inner child of mine out, and I was like going back in the time periods where I remembered that I was hurt by my mom, where I remembered that I was like sitting in my bedroom like crying, not having that feeling of being loved. And I went back to that version of myself, and I would sit there with the version that I am today, with the knowledge that I am today, and talk to my younger self and tell my younger self that it is beautiful and that I understand its pain and I know that this is painful, but as well make it clear that this has nothing to do with it, like with it as a small little human being, but that is just something which has been passed on from generation, and it's not my mother's fault either. It's nobody's fault. It just is what it is. And the moment we start to point fingers and it's like, this is you and this is you, and we just start to own our space and own our own relationship with ourselves and forgive, this is the moment where true healing has the possibility to arise, in the moment where we allow ourselves to make mistakes and understand that our parents made mistakes too, and that everything which is important is that we see that now and that we are speaking our truth now, and that's all that matters, you know. And I'm not saying to you be quiet and just pretend like everything is fine, but like do that, speak your truth to your mother or to whoever it is, you know, but right now to your mother, and tell your mother how you have felt in the moment when you start to see that. And then when your mother's trying to interrupt you and be like, yeah, but I felt like, you say like, right now it's not about you, right now it's about me, and right now I'm sharing that with you. Point. there's nothing more to talk about but this. Right now, it is about me and not about you. And if you feel like your mother is not listening to that, that's okay. The most important thing is that you know and that you see your own pain, and then you can hold yourself through that. For example, through an inner child meditation. And I might gonna upload one in the next upcoming days on my YouTube channel. So if that's something that you're interested in it might just be worth to have a peek and to see your own pain. And you can even do that with a ritual. If you say like you don't have the possibility or the chance anymore to talk with your mother in person, like make a ritual out of it. Like create yourself like this really sacred space where you have the time and the quietness to go and look inside, and then take a letter and start to write down everything that you always wanted to share with your mom. But as well, again, become aware as well of all the good things that your mom did for you, not just the bad things, and everything that she gave to you as well. Birth, like that's a big thing, don't forget that. And became aware that on a soul perspective, you kind of choose it. At least that's what we say. And it does help to make, I choose this reality. You choose this reality in every given moment. You choose it. And you can create it. And you can create a healthy relationship, a healthy bond with your mother. And you can create a shitty bond and a shitty relationship with your mother. And it all starts with yourself. It all starts with the relationship that you have and that you build with yourself. And therefore, your mom can be a beautiful mirror. And I feel that's it. I do not have more to say to that topic. That is all that I wanted to give you on the way. And if you ever have questions to that, please feel always free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help and allow the process to unfold. Allow yourself to be perfect, and make mistakes. And trust that path. With that said, I would love to invite you to just close your eyes for a second, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Just let that be. You don't need to sit, but just become aware of the ground that you are standing on, and just really ground yourself in this present moment. Maybe you want to start to see if you can smell something. Use your senses to really come back to this moment right now, to ground yourself in your own being. Feel in your inner body, like in your inner energy field, and emotions that you can notice in your toes. And take one more deep breath in your stomach and let it all go. And with that said, my friends, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Make the best out of it, and I hope I hear you soon.